It's Wednesday, the 22nd of November, 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, we have 5 big stories to get through in 5 minutes today, so we better get going. Story number 1, just when we thought interest rates wouldn't rise anymore, Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock warned that 4% wage rises cannot be sustained without an increase in productivity, and wages pose a challenge to the central bank as it tries to get inflation back to that kind of 2 to 3% target range.
Ms. Bullock said the big jump in wages last quarter, thanks to a big jump in pay for aged care employees and low-paid workers, needs to be matched with an increase in productivity to keep inflation in check. She went on to say, we haven't had any productivity growth in Australia for a number of years. In fact, labour productivity over the past 12 months is down 3.6%. That means unit labour costs, the difference between wages and productivity, is increasing at an unhealthy 7.5%. So if the cost of a unit of labour is up 7.5%, that has to push through to higher prices at the local cafe or on the factory floor or in healthcare.
Yeah, and the governor's comments came ahead of the Reserve Bank board minutes from its meeting 2 weeks ago, where it lifted rates for the 13th time in 18 months. What do the minutes say, Sean?
Look, in short, they say if inflation is persistent, then rates will rise. It all depends on how data prints from here, and last week's wages data adds to the argument for a rate rise. The outlook statement in the minutes suggests there might be another rate hike in the offing. The view among economists is that there will be one more rate hike, probably not next month, probably early next year.
Story number 2, geopolitical tensions are among the biggest challenges facing Australia over the next few years. This is according to really a chorus of senior business leaders all speaking at the ASIC summit yesterday.
Future Fund boss Raphael Arndt said the possible re-election of Donald Trump late next year marks quite a dangerous point in history. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers and Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock all warned that geopolitical tensions are among the economy's biggest challenges. Dr. Chalmers told the ASIC conference that the next 2 years of growth will be the weakest in the past 2 decades outside the global financial crisis and COVID pandemic. Mr. Arndt noted the growing inequality between different generations. He said that there is a public process underway in the US by the Trump campaign to identify and say they're going to replace senior US public servants. While that's legitimate for a newly elected government, if it does happen, it will change the direction of the world's biggest economy. Plenty of geopolitical risk out there.
Yeah, seems that way. On to story number 3 now. Experts are warning that house prices across the nation could soon start falling, triggered by a drop in affordability and also by rising unemployment.
The Housing Boom and Bust report by consultancy SQM Research says home values in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Hobart and Darwin are all expected to drop next year, dragging prices nationwide down 1%. Sydney is forecast to lead the way with a 4% drop. SQM says with standard variable rates now in the high 6s and low 7s, would-be home buyers are being deterred while some existing homeowners are experiencing stress. Also, migration growth has probably peaked. That'll take some of the steam out of the housing market. And the unemployment rate, according to SQM, will rise towards 5% by the end of the year. That will add to the downturn. Things are always better when people have a job. Well, if you don't have a job, it's going to put pressure on house prices. SQM doesn't think there's a crash on the way, just a correction.
Story number 4, about a third of Qantas, Jetstar and Virgin Australia domestic flights, Sean, were late in October. This is according to new official stats.
Apparently, that's pretty good news. A third. Some 73% of Qantas Group, including Qantas Link, arrived on time, compared with 69% of Virgin Australia's network. That's according to figures released by the Bureau of Infrastructure Transport Research Economics. Virgin achieved the highest level of on-time arrivals among the major domestic airlines at 68.6%, followed by Jetstar at 68%. And Qantas at 66.6%. The overall cancellation rate was 3.8%. That's nearly twice the level of the long-term average, sort of the pre-COVID average of 2.2%. Before the pandemic, airlines averaged about 81% on-time performance. Cancellations were again concentrated on Sydney Airport. It's the nation's biggest, but the issues at Sydney often cascade through the network into other parts of the country.
Last one, story number 5, and this is just a saga that's continuing, and day by day it just gets juicier and juicier. OpenAI's former boss, Sam Altman, who was sacked by the board of the artificial intelligence company, is going to join Microsoft, which is actually the largest shareholder in OpenAI.
That's going to make for some testy shareholder meetings. Investors were delighted with the news, sending Microsoft's share price to a record high. Altman and former OpenAI president and co-founder Greg Brockman have been hired by Microsoft to run a new artificial intelligence unit at the company. But the story doesn't end there. It turns out that Microsoft, after hiring Altman and Brockman, said it would be amenable to both of them returning to OpenAI as long as the current board resigns. Now remember, OpenAI has already appointed a new CEO, former Twitch chief Emmett Shear. Bottom line for Microsoft is that they want Altman working on AI for them, be that inside the company or at OpenAI. Who knows what happens next? Plenty of fear and greed in this story, Michael.
Yeah, I think you might be right. That's it, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Wednesday, the 22nd of November, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. And every Wednesday, there's a new episode of our sister podcast, How Do They Afford That?, which is all about making your money work a little bit harder for you. This week, it is all about what to do if you happen to receive an unexpected windfall, a bit of extra cash. You can find that one wherever you listen to podcasts, and I'll put a link in today's show notes as well. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.